What's up, everybody? It's your boy G Waters of Soul the Streets. And this episode, I am so honored and so blessed to have the legend, Mr. James DTrain Williams, on the show. Welcome to the Soul the Streets, Mr. DTrain.
Hey, thank you, my brother. Good to be here with you. Thank you.
Yep, man. You've had such an incredible journey on in music, and so many stories. I'm sure that you can talk about. So many hits you've created. So many stages you've touched. You know, your journey has just been amazing from us watching you all these years. So I had the pleasure of purchasing one of your projects when I was a youngin' in your eyes, and so it's an honor to have you here on the show. Thank you again, once again, for being on the show.
Hey, it's an honor for me to be here, brother. 40 years later, somebody still wants to have a conversation with you. That's a
Oh
good thing.
man, I mean, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? So let's start the conversation, if we can, from the beginning. I know
Sure.
you're from Brooklyn, New York. I'm I'm
Yes, sir.
I'm from the Bronx, so we are both New York's residents.
Boogie down.
Yes,
All
yes,
right.
yes. So how did your journey begin?
My journey began at 6 years old. I was a singer. I started singing in Washington Temple Church of God in Christ in Brooklyn
Okay.
under Pastor Bishop F.D. Washington and Madam Washington. Ronnie Dyson, who had the song "If You Let Me Make Love to You, Then Why Can't I Touch You" in the 70s,
Hmm.
he was our choir director, and Al Sharpton was our junior church minister. So I
Wow.
have a rich legacy in church. It was like a mega church in Brooklyn, one of the first. And I started singing at 6 years old, man. And my mother told me, she said, if you're scared, then just look at the back of the room and just don't look at the people. And so at 6 years old, I started doing dance steps in the pulpit. I was like, oh no, I can't turn around now. And I
Oh, okay. So
started
you
doing
was one of those
it.
type of kids. You was in the spirit at 6.
Oh yeah, I started spinning around. My pastor started laughing. He almost fell out his chair. And that's when I knew I had a little bit of a gift. My mother laughed the whole day. And it was
Man.
beautiful. And then growing up, I joined the Timothy Wright concert choir with Reverend Timothy Wright. Worked with him, did my first album professional recording at the age of 15.
Okay.
He had permission from my mother to let me out for one day out of junior high school. And I did a song called The Victories and the Praise.
Okay.
And
Oh, so
it
you
was
started
so
out in gospel
important to me.
recording as well. So you did your first recording was a
Yeah.
gospel recording. Okay.
Yeah, and you ain't get paid no money because it was church,
Right.
but but you're just glad to be in the room and part of the conversation. And at the age of 19 years old, I was in Brooklyn College, and Will Downing, who was my dear friend from high school at Erasmus, um, we had been friends since 16 years old. I've known Will since I was 16 and he was 15.
Okay.
And he invited me to a studio session because he had become a songwriter for people like Melba Moore and Freddie Jackson. He was writing in high school.
Okay.
And I went to his studio, Sound Lab Recording Studios in Brooklyn. And we're sitting there, we're recording, and then Hubert Eves walks in. And I didn't know Hubert from a can of paint, you know. But Will was like, giving me lip signs like I can read lips, man. She used to do that in church when she was pissed at me. But Will's like, and I'm going, okay. So then Will had me do some step out leads. He said, I want you to do some step outs. I said, okay. So I'm doing some ad libs and stuff. And he said,
So that's what Atlas was called back then, step outs?
yeah,
Okay.
yep. And then I went, and Hubert was eating Chinese food, and he went, he put the food down, and he gave Will his telephone number and told him, get at the D train when he comes out. Have him call me. I want him to come over to my house tomorrow. Next day, I went over to his house. He used to live on Ralph and Jefferson in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And I get to his house, and he had that little quarter-inch tape machine in the corner. And he said, man, I got this song. First of all, I love your voice, man, but I got this song, and all I got is this. And and he played the track, and it had a little drum loop going, and he had a little Casio drum machine.
Mm.
And it kept going. I'll stand up on cloud, shout out loud, you're the one for me. He said, that's all I got. That's all I got. So I said, play it again, play it again. Take the vocals out. So when he took the vocals out, um, I said, give me a pad. And he gave me a pad, and I started writing, man. With this love I found, takes my feet up off the ground and fly. And we wrote
Classic.
one for me in about an hour. In 1 hour,
What?
Your One for Me was written. We recorded it in his house, and he wanted to do it, even though it sounded great in his house, he wanted to do it professionally because that's the way you did it back in the day.
Right.
So we went back to Sound Lab Studios and we cut You're the One for Me. And
What
after
year
we,
was that?
this was 19, November of 1980.
Wow. Oh man.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry, November of 1981. That's what it
81.
was.
Okay.
81. And so he started shopping it and he took it to Capitol Records. They were like, nah, 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 he can't sing. They
What?
took it to Columbia Records. They said, it's a nice song, but you need a girl. Take him off the record. And he played it for his father. Hubert played it for his father. His father said, oh my God, he's too loud. He's too loud. You need to get somebody with a smooth voice to do this song.
Oh my
Everybody
gosh.
hated my voice. And he took it to 57th Street and 7th Avenue to a little label called Prelude Records,
Mm.
who was at that time the hottest dance label in New York with Franz Jolie. They had Secret Weapon. They had the Nick Stryker Band. They had Jocelyn Brown.
Oh man. Okay.
So, and they had Jeanette Lady Day, Gail Adams. So we went with them because they loved the song. And Marvin Schlachter, Joey Bonner, and Stan Hoffman, they pushed the record to #1 on the Billboard chart.
With an
And we
independent
wound up
label.
doing, huh?
On an independent label.
On an independent label.
In
And it wound up
1981.
going, yeah, it went #1 in 4 different countries.
Sheesh. I remember that. I remember that on the airways. Crazy. I would have never thought that that was an independent though.
Oh, yeah. Prelude was an independent label up on 57th Street. They got distribution in Europe through
Okay.
Columbia. But in America, it was just pretty much Prelude on their own strength.
Okay.
Um, the great thing about it was it opened up opportunities for me to do Soul Train for the first time. Me and Hubert did Soul Train, which was really cool with Don Cornelius.
Mm-hmm.
So I let Hubert do the interview. I was too young. I didn't know how to speak in an interview. I was like, how many. And I'm looking at Don Cornelius because he was something that all the kids idolized, especially since they had the Jackson Five on there.
Definitely. Definitely.
Once you did something that the Jackson Five did for a kid coming from the hood, it's like, I'm in. So it was a blessing, and we were doing at least 4 shows every weekend, 2 shows a night in different clubs. But the ones who broke the record was Larry Levan in Paradise Garage. Hubert took the acetates up to the Paradise Garage, and this is before radio started playing it. And Larry put that record on, and I don't know, it was like a bomb went off in the Paradise Garage. The whole dance floor, people, because if people remember the Paradise Garage correctly, they had a movie theater, they had a
Mm-hmm.
room, all these different rooms. People started coming in there like ants to honey and bees. The whole dance floor packed out, and those people would not leave. So he kept playing it. He made a remix, and then we got Francois Kevorkian to
Mm-hmm.
do a ultimate remix. But Larry Levan broke the record, and back then when the streets were talking, from being in the Bronx,
Mm-hmm.
when the streets elevated your record, then radio had to listen, and so it got to the ears of Frankie Crocker,
Oh my
the
God.
Chief
That was it.
Rocker. Yeah, that was it. WBLS. And once the record was finished, we got the remix of the dub side. Frankie loved all of it. And he had me and Hubert come up for an interview. And that was it. That was just the beginning, and it never ended for the next 40 years, you know. It's been a
Man.
wonderful ride. It's been a great journey working. You know, first 6 months of my career, we opened up for Parliament Funkadelic and the Barcades. And we
Woo.
traveled on the Miller Sound Express. Back in the day, it was a truck that was a stage. And it was like, because the jingle for the Miller Sound Express was, it's a truck, that's a stage. The hottest acts you'll be amazed. The biggest concerts coming to town. Come on and catch the stars on the Miller Sound Express. You know, and we all went on that day. It was Peebo Bryson some nights, you know, Atlantic Stars, Star
Oh
Point.
man. Star
Babyface
Point.
was
Woo.
even opening up for me with the deal. You know, I
Oh my
interviewed
God. Oh my God.
Babyface many years later, and he said, "Man, DTrain, by the time you got on stage, we were already on the tour bus going to the next town."
What?
Yeah, so I mean, it was fun, and it was a lot of great memories. Being on a tour bus, traveling through the Midwest, the South, you had a camaraderie with your band
Hmm.
because you're a traveling family. It was almost like being in a circus for a kid from Brooklyn, you
Right.
know? I loved it. I loved it.
Man, that's incredible. And then you from You're the One for Me, Keep On come right after that one, or was there anything that was right
Yeah,
after, right? Okay.
Keep on came right after that one, and that one blew up, went to the top of the charts. We didn't know that it was going to be like a motivational anthem
No,
or an
okay.
anthem that gets people to recognize within themselves that they're better than what they think they are. Because what happens is so many times with the noise that goes on in our world, we lose the capacity to think for ourselves, and we're always waiting for someone to come and rescue us. And what happens is when you say to yourself, no one's coming to rescue you, you got to do this on your own. That's where Keep On comes in. Because
Mm,
when you learn, I got to do it on my own for myself, then you're creating your legacy. Because in creating your legacy and in doing it for yourself, number one, you become independent. Number two, you become self reliant. And number three, you become blessed by your efforts. And then people stand back and look at you and they didn't, and you learn that it's what you do in the dark that shows up in the light. And people
mm,
see it and go, wow, that's magnificent. It's just like LeBron James and Kobe Bryant, God rest the dead, taking all those shots at 3 o'clock in the morning when all the rest of the basketball team's home sleeping. But he's in that gym taking them shots, doing layups, doing spin moves. Then when the game time comes, he looks like a genius. And people say, well, how did he get to be so good? Practice. Miles
mm,
Davis used to say it: practice, practice, practice. That's the one element that we've lost in today's musical genre, and that's why it sounds like it does. You
mm.
know, back then, I had to practice on the guitar to learn how to play it. I had to practice on the piano. So, you know, I used to get info from Hubert and my friend Jay Rodriguez, who's a musician here in New York, and they would teach me little piano chords, and I'd practice them until I learned them good, and I sounded like an expert. But I
Right.
wasn't any good. It was just good enough to make me sound good.
Right, right.
But when
Which
you
was good enough
learn
for
your
us.
instrument, yeah, when you learn your instrument, you learn that it speaks to you. So when things in life happen and days get dark, as they will,
Mm,
you can go to that instrument and that instrument will speak to you like God. And you can play that guitar until God speaks to you. And it's not that the instrument becomes your God, but God moves through the instrument into you. And you
mm,
start to play chords and melodies. And that's how you write songs and music. Because what happens is through adversity, we learn creativity, especially musicians. That's why you see so many musicians sometimes, unfortunately, we bear the burden of the world because we feel everything. We feel people's pain. We feel their darkness. We feel their light. We feel the smile of a baby walking down the street. Everybody's looking at that kid going, cute kid. But a musician looks at the kid and says, wow, beautiful baby. I wonder if he's rich or poor. I wonder if he lives in the project.
Mm.
I wonder if he's being beaten at night. You know, all of these things come to your mind, and you think of the kids who are in the projects, you know, up in the South Boogie Down Bronx, you know, who, because I once lived on 167th and Walton Avenue up there in the Boogie Down, right
Okay,
there.
okay.
So I know the Bronx,
That's around
man.
my way.
Oh, yeah. I was right around the corner from Yankee Stadium, man.
Oh yeah,
So
okay.
I knew the dynamics of that area. You know, I dated a Latina up there, and unfortunately, she passed away from complications with septic shock. But her name was Nancy Soto, and
Okay.
beautiful sister.
May she rest
But
in peace.
it was you learn from situations like that how to write a song. You know, because now I'm brokenhearted. But who do I turn to? Because you can cry on people's shoulders for as long as you want to, but then they're gonna stop picking up the phone. They're gonna do, oh my God, it's DTrain. He's crying about his girlfriend again. Lord, I don't
Right.
want to hear that. You learn you have to depend on yourself because, like I said, through adversity, you build strong bones. You know from being up in the streets in the Bronx. You
Mm-hmm.
know, when you're young, you fear everything. This world teaches you to fear everything. Fear money, you know, because money's the root of all evil. And you know, and like your parents said sometime, my dad always said to me, money don't grow on trees.
Right. Gotta go out
You
there
don't
and get it.
learn the lessons of economic security, you learn the lessons of economic insecurity. And when you create a little bit of wealth, you get scared you're gonna lose it because of the lessons you were taught as a child. So you got to teach yourself new and different lessons. I'm always trying to learn and to create because in learning and creating, I create a better me. And that's why in 1989, my journey shifted because we did 3 albums for Prelude, which were highly successful. My third album, Something's on Your Mind, you know, I started learning about the record business. I
Mm.
started
I
learning.
wanted to go back to, not to cut you off, but I want to go back to the Keep On song because you said so
Sure.
much about the meaning of the song, what it became for the listener, for us. But when
Mhm.
you all were writing that song, did that song do that for you?
Yes, because at the time when we wrote it, Jesse Jackson, I believe, was trying to either run for president or vice president. And he had the Keep Hope Alive message out there.
Okay, okay.
And everybody in the business, like Morris Day and the Time and Prince, they were starting to write songs about funk and how to manipulate women. And we wanted to take a different trajectory and lead towards inspiration. By that time, I had 3 kids. I had 3 sons.
Okay.
And I was wondering what my messaging was to them. And so, and Hubert had 2 kids. You know, he had a son and a daughter, Dana and little Hugh. Little Hugh's now famous for being the musician for, what's her name? You Better Call Tyrone.
Erica Badu.
Erica Badu, that's him on bass.
Well, okay.
Lisa Cult Jam, you know, that's him on drums. He's a
Mm.
multi-talented musician, so he plays both drums and bass. And so when you learn about these things, keep on can change the trajectory of your life. And I was young when we wrote it. Like I said, I was in my 20s, 21. We were just working on the album at that point. Hubert had said we got to do a classic. That's where Walk On By came in. You know,
Mm.
Burt
Okay.
Bacharach and Hal David. And those were the 3 singles off the first album.
So, did
And
you
we
write the
wanted,
lyrics to Keep On?
yes, yeah,
Mm.
Hubert and myself, we wrote the lyrics to everything
Okay.
together. All 5 albums that we did collectively, we did most of the writing together.
Nice, nice, nice. That song is definitely an inspirational anthem, classic anthem. So yeah.
Well, I'm grateful for it 40 years later. You know, I had a radio gig for a quick minute in 2008. 2001, I transitioned to being a radio jock.
Okay.
Um, you know, I got an offer from BJ Stone up there, Sirius XM Radio, and they were
Mm-hmm.
just starting out. Nobody knew what the radio station was. They didn't have no Howard Stern or nothing. It was just grassroots station, and they had a little money. And so they called me up and they said, "Hey, D, you want to be on the air?" I said, "Sure." He said, "I'm gonna train you for 3 months, and I'm gonna let you go." I was like, "You're gonna let me go? You're gonna fire me?" No, man, I'm gonna leave you on the air by yourself, and you're gonna do this thing, and you're gonna learn how to do it. And he taught me well. And for the next 6 months, for about a year, I was on the air by myself from 12 to 6 on something that they called the Express.
Okay.
First thing they called the Express, but then the next year they changed the name of it to Heart and Soul, Channel 51. And for the next 7 years, I was on Heart and Soul from 12 noon to 6 p.m. every day of the
Mm.
week. And it was a game changer for me because I learned when to shut up. You know, as musicians, we talk over each other. You say the question, and I'm like, well, yeah, man, so and so and so and so. And then you trying to give me an answer. I'm like, but let me tell you something. I learned that when you ask the question, you got to zip it because they break it up into segments.
Right.
Here's straight on to that, ba ba boom. So I learned how to do that, and I've had some great people on my show. I had Lionel Richie, I had Roberta Flack, I had
Mm.
the martial artist from China, Jet Li, on my
Wow.
show.
Okay. Different. That's
I had,
different. Mhm.
yeah, I had Tony Braxton, I had
Woo.
Andy Stone, um, you know, Eric Benet, all of them, and so it was Shaka Khan I had on my show. Um,
Sheesh.
So it was wonderful meeting my contemporaries and asking the questions that I wanted to ask them because our conversations as contemporaries is not the same as a radio jock asking them
Right.
questions.
Right. That's a
Radio
fact.
jock is going, you were born in 1957 and you joined Rufus in 1975. So what was that like? You know, me, I'm like, Shaka, girl, you look good. You know,
Yes.
lost
Yes.
weight.
Yes. Yes.
You know, what you cooking in the kitchen? You know what I mean? And I learned how to ask questions that were more personable through my friend and mentor, BJ Stone. He told me, he said, man, just be yourself. Just be yourself. And he shouldn't have told me that because I'm a comedian at heart. So I
Okay.
got up in the air in my first 2 years and I'm like, spank the monkey and call him George Clinton. And oh, Jesus Christ. The whole programming director was going, did he just say spank the monkey? Wait, did he just say spank the monkey on the air to 2 million people? I love it. And they said, sounds like he's having fun. And BJ called me into his office and said, DTrain, do you know the meaning of what you said? I said, yeah, I'm talking about Michael Jackson and Bobo. He said, no, that ain't Michael Jackson and Bobo. And when he explained it to me, I was like, oh.
Oh. Oh, that's what they think. That's what they think is I'm talking about.
Yeah, I had my own analogy on what the definition was, but it was
You know,
cool,
as
man.
we do it, as we do as black people, we make our own definitions for sayings and stuff. So now everyone
Oh
over
yeah,
get it.
absolutely, man. And you know, I've changed roles many times because after the success at Prelude, we went to Columbia, and we were small fish in a big pond. And that's when I really learned about the music business because now I'm in the studio every day with Hubert, and I'm watching the budget. And I'm in the room programming keyboards for him to use on the album. I learned that D50 inside and out, and I was programming it and then sending the music into the next room. So I became pretty prolific in learning how to program keyboards,
Okay.
which was a lot of fun, mixing sounds and stuff. And at that point, tragedy struck. In our last album, In Your Eyes, my keyboard player, James Batten, who was in my band, he was my musical director when Hubert left. He died while I
Mm.
was in Europe. And I came back home. I was going to have his engagement party at my house, but my manager waited until we were getting on the plane in Amsterdam and said, "Yo, D, Batten is gone." And he died, watching the Philadelphia Eagles game.
Woo.
And, he had had pneumonia and nobody knew he was sick. And so we went and we buried him at his funeral. And it was a hard time for me. And it was a hard time for Hubert. And then we get in the studio and we're recording the album. And then Hubert finds out that his brother Daryl was diagnosed with AIDS.
Mm.
And his mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And both of them were dying in the same hospital at the same
Mm.
time. And we're doing the album and he's producing it. And then we wrote it one night. He had to go out to Minneapolis or St. Paul's, where his family was from, St. Paul's, Minnesota.
He's from Minneapolis with Jimmy and
Yeah, he's
Terry,
from
right?
Minneapolis. His father used to play with Prince's father.
Nah, okay.
He knows that whole Minneapolis scene. And he came back, and it was a late night. We were in the studio. It was like midnight, and we're in the studio with the engineer, the assistant engineer, and he just sat and walked in the room and started playing on the piano. And so I picked up my guitar and I started following his chords, and we started playing. And he was crying, and I was like, okay, I don't know what this is about, but I'm gonna go with it. And we wrote the song "My Friend." And it said, "Since you went away, my friend, I've been so blue. Thought about the things that we used to do. This is just a song to say how we miss you."
Mm.
And that was because his mother had died in one section of the hospital and his brother had died in the other. And we wrote this song in about, maybe, again, it was not one of those blessed songs, about an hour. And we didn't even go to making a big production out of it. We
Mm-hmm.
did it raw. That was the first song we ever did raw. And it was long because we just kept playing, feeling each other, and because there was emotion. And when we finished, the engineer stopped the tape, got up, walked outside, said, "I can't do this. I got to smoke a cigarette." And the assistant engineer got up and walked outside. He didn't smoke, but they were crying in the street.
Mm.
And I knew the impact of that song, "My Friend," because it was about sorrow, it was about loss. And I realized the impact of music. And 40 years later, when I was at Sirius, I was getting letters from guys in prison that said, "DTrain, I love your music. It impacted my life." He said, I'm doing life. I got a letter from a dude said, "I'm doing 60 years to life. I'm never getting out." He said, "But keep on. When I get up in the morning, that's my theme song. And it lets me know that although these walls house my body for the rest of my natural life, that song lets me know that my mind can go somewhere else."
Mm. That's deep.
And when he told me that, man, I cried, man, and I almost couldn't do my radio show, but I realized that if I didn't, he'd be lost.
That was
Because
probably one of your greatest shows after him telling you that, even though you didn't want to do it. That's that particular episode.
right. And so what happens is, I gravitated in 1988 to doing albums. Well, first, after the record business kind of ended, because in 1988, um, R. Kelly with Public Announcement, Teddy Riley with Guy ushered in a new movement to R&B music with
Mm-hmm.
New Jack Swing. And, everybody was wearing their pants around their waist. And that image didn't appeal to me. And
Right.
the music didn't appeal to me. So I went into doing radio and television jingles. And I got into the world of advertising with Saatchi and Gray Advertising in New York for the next 20 years. And I learned how to do commercials and I had a lot of success doing commercials, but the friends that I met, like Fonzie Thornton
Mm.
and Lisa Fisher, who always worked with me, and all of them, and Audrey Wheeler, they would pull me into situations like Fonzie, hey, DTrain, you want to do Bat Out of Hell too? I was like,
Mhm.
what's Bat Out of Hell too? Ivy Osborne, you want to do the album? I said, sure, let's do it. No, Meatloaf. He said, you want to do
Meatloaf. Oh
Meatloaf?
man.
I said, sure. So I went in the studio. We did Meatloaf's Bad Out of Hell too. Then Audrey Wheeler called me up and said, D, you want to do Cher's new album? I said, what's it called? She said, um, what's the Believe album?
Wait,
We're gonna
wait.
call
So
it
wait, did
Believe.
you produce the Believe album?
No. I'm singing backgrounds on the Power. On
Oh,
the
okay, okay, okay.
So we're doing background vocals. So I'm learning now to sing behind other artists on their label, and I got to work with Bette Midler.
Oh
You
my
know, I got
God.
to work with Judy Collins. Uh, I did her album. I got to work with Luther Vandross on Dance with My Father. I sang on a song called She Saw You, written by Marcus Miller. I worked with Michael Jackson on Invincible. Um, we sang on that ballad that he had, Heal the World. So being in the studio with all of these great artists, you start to see how they navigate the studio. See, up until that point, all I saw was D-Train. Now I'm
So,
looking at
so who were your influences when before you got into the studio with Hubert? Like musically,
oh
who? What?
man, Michael Jackson, Jackson 5, easy. I was a kid growing up in Brooklyn, Ed
Okay.
Sullivan Show. You know what was great? When I met Michael, all the singers were given instructions. Don't look him in the eye. Don't touch him. Don't shake his hand. Don't even hug him. Go over in the corner and just sit and wait till he calls you. Yeah. And I was in there with Lisa Fisher, my boy Keith Fluid, Audrey Wheeler. I think Nikki Richards was in there. And we were supposed to be backing up Michael on the song. So we get in there, and everybody did as they were told. I'm not one of those people. And so everybody went and sat in their prospective seats, and I went walking up to Michael. I was like, yo, Michael, no! How you doing, baby? I gave him a big hug. He stood up. He hugged me. I said, how you doing, man? I said, listen, man, I just want to tell you, I don't know if I'll ever get this opportunity again. 1969, Ed Sullivan, 7 p.m. on a Sunday night. I was there. I was watching you on Channel 2 CBS in New York. I loved you and your brothers then. I love you now. How's Valentino and Jermaine doing? He goes, Valentino and Jermaine, they're doing wonderful. But that Tommy Mottola, oh, I hate him. He's a real bastard. I said, Dad. I said, Michael cussing. What the? Hold on, really?
You got the real out of him.
I did not like Tommy Mottola. So we did the session and we had a great time with him, even though he took us off because he was looking. Michael would have you come in and sing 8 bars. Then he'd come back the next day and call you in to sing another 8 bars. Then he'd call you back again to sing another 8 bars. And then he just erased everything that you did and call it another eight
But I
people.
bet you that pay was amazing, huh?
Oh, the pay was great. You get paid to do the same thing over and over and over again. But that's how his budgets ran up into the millions because he had Steve Lukather from Toto in there doing solos over 10 times. Steve Lukather is
Mm.
like the premier guitar there. But he had him doing and Eddie Van Halen, who wasn't supposed to be in there because Eddie Van Halen was a rock and roller. His band got mad at him for doing black music.
But okay.
You know, they got mad at him when Beat It came out. And he even testified to that. What happened where was back in the day, Mtume taught me about the divide in
May
music.
he rest
That
in
great
peace. That's one
teacher.
of my idols right there.
Yeah, Mtume, what he did one day, I was working with him on New York Undercover.
Mm.
Started doing television shows. I worked with him on New York Undercover. I worked with Danny Aiello on his television show. And I was in the studio with him too, man. And he drew a circle on the paper. He said, little brother, I'm going to school you now. School's in. He drew a line in the middle of the circle. And I said, okay. He said, what is that? I said, 2 halves of a circle. He said, now I'm gonna leave the top half to pop and rock music. And that's what he wrote on the paper, pop music. And then in the bottom half, he drew 5 different slices, I don't know how many slices he drew. And he said, this is jazz music, this is R&B music, this is country music, this is Latin music, this is jazz music. This is how all of these slices are divided monetarily. That's why when you ask for $150,000 to do your DTrain album on Columbia, they raising hell. But Adam Ant can walk into the door of Columbia Records with no proven record and get a check put in his hand for $8 million. So I was like, oh wow. He said, and it continues to be that way. And it's not about racism. It is partly about racism because the bigger demographic are white people around the world. And they gravitate to Duran Duran. They gravitate. Michael was the first one to cross that line. Actually, James Brown was to do it. Because if you look back in history, what he told me, and he told me to watch it. This is before YouTube even came out. And years later, I watched it after Tunes had passed. I turned on YouTube and I'm looking at James Brown on the Dick Cavett show. And he's up there going, I'm black now, I'm proud. So I'm hearing the voices and I'm looking at James. But then when they panned out, black people weren't allowed to be in the audience. So sitting at his feet were like 30 white kids. It looked like, American Bandstand. And little white kids sitting around the table. And it had to be about 1971.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm black and I'm proud. And I'm like, no, you ain't. Wait a minute. Who told you to lie on television? But, it showed you that music is powerful. It changes the trajectory of racism. That's why Michael Jackson said, I could stand in the middle of a war between Russia and America and end the war. All I got to do is stand up there with my band and sing Beat It. And they'll put the guns down because they'll be up there first going, wait a minute, is that Michael Jackson? Wait a minute,
Mm-hmm.
is Michael Jackson singing Thriller? Wait a minute, we can't shoot him. Wait a minute, let's look again.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, let's go to there and check it out.
That's my favorite artist. You can't kill
And
him.
see, music changes who you are because what happens is when you listen to your favorite song, and this is how the human mind works. When you listen to your favorite song, computers can't tell you where you were when that song came out. But the human mind can say, I was on 42nd Street getting ready to go
Mm-hmm.
into Tower Records, and there were musicians. It was raining outside. I just broke up with my girlfriend. I was upset and I wanted to buy me some albums. And I heard this song on the radio. Boom.
That's a fact.
Computer can't do that. Computer can tell you when the record came out, but the human mind tells you the emotion behind that record, where you were, what you were doing, who you were with. That's why we have to learn to elevate our human minds. Because right now, computers is taking over and they're
That's
trying to elevate themselves to the status of human minds through AI, through chat GPT. You see, video killed the radio star. When MTV and VH1 came out, that eliminated Elton John and Crocodile Rock with Cousin Bruce. You know, now you got VH1. So people now like what they see. They no longer like what they hear, they like what they see. And if you made them see good things, they, oh, yeah, I'm gonna go buy that record. And
right.
that's what record companies use. But then the internet comes along. And now you got Google and you got YouTube and you got all these other things. And then uh internet kills the video star. Because with the advent of internet, now you don't need MTV. Nobody's going to subscribe to MTV when I can go for free and look on my computer and watch Michael Jackson's videos, or I can watch any video I want for free
More than once.
more than once and put it in a playlist, dude, so I can watch it over and over again. So now internet kills the video star. Chat GPT is here now. AI is here now. And that's getting ready to kill the internet star. And once that happens, it's going to be game over. Because what happens is you no longer need publicists. You no longer need human intelligence. Because, see, what happens is we lost our human intelligence when America got rid of all of its record stores. And this was systematic. We closed every Tower record store in America. We closed every Virgin Superstore in America. We closed Sam Goody. We
Close
closed
the
half the
Wiz.
Barnes. Yeah, we closed half the Barnes and Nobles. We closed all those little stores in the West Village. Now, where's the kids gonna go listen to their music? What, you gonna buy it in Walmart? No, we go to Walmart to buy food and furniture. We ain't going into Walmart to look for
Right.
Michael Jackson. And as a matter of fact, you ain't even got it in there because your catalog don't go that deep. So I can't go in there and find Miles Davis from 1972. Can't do that
All
because
you're
there's
gonna see
no.
is Taylor Swift and Beyonce.
That's why the Europeans are so far ahead of us because they never closed their record stores. They never closed, they never stopped buying albums. They never stopped buying CDs. When I go to Europe right now, you could walk up to a 15-year-old boy and go, "Who's DTrain?" And he'll tell you. DTrain was born in Brooklyn, New York, 1962. His first album came out in 1981. He's still here. He has a new album out called Time Has Come Today. His first single is Time Has Come Today.
Yeah.
And he still looks good for an old man.
So,
And
so the new album, the other side of the tracks came out
yeah,
in November, and it's a
right.
beautiful project, and it makes me think of outside of yourself. It made me feel like I was listening to this generation's like Marvin Gaye. What's going on? Like it really made me think about the world in a way that new music hasn't allowed me to think. So, what was the motivation behind that project?
What happened was the motivation behind this, half of it was written during COVID. So
Okay.
we're indoors and I can't go anywhere. So I started writing, but I started writing, and then I've written over 300 songs in my career. But I prayed this time before I was writing, and God spoke to me, and He said, "You've written all this music way before you started this project. One thing you're going to do on this project, you're going to let my children, which are your songs, you're going to let them go outside and play. You've been holding back my children, and you've been holding back your gifts that I've given you from the world. Because what happens is when you keep singing, you're the one for me, keep on. Something's on your mind. You're regurgitating who you were, not who you are. You are
Mm.
63 years old. And see, so many of my counterparts just keep regurgitating who they were. 777 93 11. Regurgitate. When is something new going to happen? When are you going to speak? And see, what happens is so many artists these days are afraid to talk about Trump. So many people these days are afraid to speak on the things that make this world go round. Because what happens is when you speak out against the system will pull your record off the radio. But when you, now with the advent, like I said, of the internet, you can buy it on Spotify. This album took me away from R&B because I've been exposed to Bette Midler, because I've been exposed to Luther Vandross, because I've been exposed to Meatloaf, and I've been exposed to the Kennedy Center honors and work with Bruce Springsteen and work with Sting, work with David Sanborn and Chick Corea and all of these other guys, Herbie Hancock. When you're exposed 50 feet from stardom, you're in school, and your scope becomes wider, and your musical parallel becomes wider, and you see things in different dimensions. It's like seeing things in 3D, because when you're just an R&B artist, you're in that box. You're in that box where they keep black people. You're black, so you know you might as well come up with the best R&B record. I've been told by black people in Germany, just do another good R&B record. People will love it. What is
Mm.
R&B these days? I'm not going to follow the trend of what it is because I don't like it. I'm like my parents when my records came out. Oh, that I don't like that. So I realized that in my voice, I can change the world because I've already built a foundation with the musical legacy that I provided before I got to 63. So when
Mm-hmm.
I have something to say, I'm going to say what I got to say with no apologies. And some of the songs sound like R&B, like Time Has Come Today. But then you have a song like Destiny where you're thinking of, wait a minute, that sounds like the British group Go West. Where you have a song like The Circle Has No Sides, which talks about racism or discrimination against gay and LGBTQ. I can't even say it. Gay and lesbian rights. Can't do all them letters,
It's
man.
a lot of letters. It's a lot of letters.
Well, what our society dictates who is acceptable and who's unacceptable. That's what The Circle Has No Sides is. We've dealt with racism for the past 400 years as black people. But what happens is in America, I'm a black man. In America, I'm an African American. That's the name they gave us. And now I'm no longer black. In Europe, I'm just a man.
Mm.
When I get off the plane, I'm a man. And I'm equal to every other man in that land. I'm not a black man. I'm just a man.
How
What?
did you guys? How did you link up with Ashet for to cover You're the One for Me for the project?
Oh, that was done through my musical partner. My new label, DTrain Enterprises, is being distributed under my friend Charvet, the Don,
Okay.
out of Los Angeles. And he said, D man, I want you to meet Jay from As Yet. And that was my first meeting. I knew their music, but
Right.
I never met them because I never worked with them. They were a 90s group that came after me. And by that time, I was out of the country and doing jingles, and I was
Mm-hmm.
someplace else. So it was really wonderful working with these guys. They're younger than I am. Um, and they call me Big Bro. And it's wonderful to have a group of guys. And I mean, every last one of those brothers can sing. I mean, sing. Sometimes you find groups where you got the lead singer and then you got background singers who are average.
Mm-hmm.
You look at most groups, you say, oh, yeah, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, Smokey was a man, but the rest of the Miracles,
Don't know too much.
okay, you don't know who they are. You look at the Spinners, Felipe, Billy, John, Purvis. The rest of the guys were average. Supremes, it was Diane. You didn't focus on Mary. You
Mm-mm.
just focused on Diane.
Just
So what
Diane,
happens,
the
yeah,
boss.
yeah, it was Diana's group. So what happens is when you look at these parallels in groups and the changes that they make, Charvet introduced me to them, which I really thank him. Shout out to Charvet. Thank you, my brother. I love you. I'll call you soon. Um,
Yes,
and thank you, Chantel Reeder, who's my publicist.
yes,
Make
yes.
this
Big shout out to
happen.
Chantel
Shout out
too.
to Chantel Reeder. I love you, girl. It's wonderful when you can have a business relationship with people and also a personal working relationship because it goes far beyond the barometers of client and, you know, working partner. So
Right.
Sharpay made it happen. We shot the video in downtown Vegas. We had a lot of fun,
It
and
looked like it.
it was so cool. And I love those guys. And hopefully we put some shows together because
Yeah,
it'll be
that'd
a
be dope.
of the 90s
That'd
and
be dope.
80s all in one thing.
Hey,
We were,
with you being from Brooklyn, did you ever cross paths with Stephanie Mills? Cause y'all both two
oh
powerhouses
my
from
God.
BK.
Yeah, Stephanie, Stephanie worked at Sirius Radio for a minute.
Oh really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Stephanie, Stephanie used to work up at Sirius Satellite Radio. BJ brought her in. She was doing Wednesday afternoons. And she did that for about maybe 6 months. And then her dad got ill. And she had to go to North Carolina where he was to take care of him.
Oh,
So, but she
okay.
short tenure at Sirius XM Radio. I'd see her walking down the hallways and I'd holler at her when she was going in her studio. I've always loved Stephanie, had a great camaraderie, and I've watched her career grow from the whiz to where it is now. And
Yeah.
she's created, like Shaka, she's created a legacy for herself. And Melissa Morgan created
Yes.
a legacy. CC Peniston created a legacy for Mars Day and the Time, created their legacy.
That's what it's
New,
all about.
New Edition, my little
DTrain
brother,
created
I
a
love them.
legacy.
They created their legacy. So when they close their eyes, you're gonna hear their music for the rest of your life.
When you close your eyes, which won't be no time soon, what would you want your legacy to be?
I would want my legacy to be one of change, to let people know you can change the trajectory of your life by changing your mind. You can change the trajectory of your life by changing what you listen to. Don't listen to one, as a musician, don't listen to just one palette of music. Listen to all different palettes because they teach you how to paint outside the lines. They teach you how to paint in colors. So you see the world in color and not in black and white. The world will teach you how to see things in black and white. Economically, we see things in black and white with rich and poor, especially through our healthcare system, which is being demolished now. Economically, we see the difference between black and white when a 47-time felon can be the president of the United States. If you and me had one felony, we wouldn't be walking the streets. So music can change some of those thoughts. And so what I want to be known for is one that kind of rebelled against the system and brought positive power to people's lives. Because I don't know where you live. You may live in a bad area. You may live, some people, there are kids growing up in the project and they got to walk past the gangbangs. But if they hear D-Train, they know they got a different option. They know I don't have to do what he's doing. I could go in my house and I could learn how to play the keyboards and change where my life is going to head into. I can, and it doesn't have to be a musician. You could be an athlete. I was a football player. Learn how to listen to keep on. Become the best defensive tackle or running back that you can be. You could be the next Saquon Barkley. Not only athletics, but look at people like Dr. Eric Dyson. He's one of the greatest professors and orators of our time. Learn how to speak efficiently when you talk to people so you look intelligent. Music can teach you all of those things. That's my gift to the world. So that when I leave, I hope that I speak eloquently enough to you when I'm not singing to stimulate your mind, stimulate your purpose, stimulate your heart, because you may never see my face again and you may never hear my voice again, live or anything else. But you'll remember that thought that I put in your head. So let it be the thought of greatness and positivity in you.
Man. On that though, how can the people find you on social media these days?
Well, on social media, on Facebook, it's D-Train, D-Train. Because it's funny. A lot of people, when you say, D-Train's going to be performing at so-and-so or so place, they go, D-Train, D-Train. So D-Train, D-Train is my Facebook handle. And D-Train, the official, is on Instagram. Yeah. And on Spotify, it's D-Train. So when you look up D-Train in all three of these places, you'll find me. You'll
Okay.
find. You see my picture. Uh, I got a nice blue suit on Instagram. Took it down in the art district here in
Okay.
Vegas. But yeah, I'd love for people to reach out and talk to me. I'm getting ready to. I just started my own YouTube channel, but I've been traveling doing the Soul Train cruise. Uh,
Okay. Oh, I've been
Train.
seeing clips of that with a lot of artists. I think Melissa Morgan was on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen
Mark,
her post from
Earth,
it.
Wind and Fire
Yeah.
experience.
How was
It
he
was a
with?
lot of fun. So I'll be going back hopefully for the November cruise.
Okay,
Uh,
nice.
but I'm doing, what happens is people don't realize the Soul Train cruise is not just for entertainment. The Soul Train cruise has lawyers, managers, booking agents, record promoters, all of that on the same cruise. It's a networking cruise. You can walk down
Oh,
the hallway, and it's like the old Jack the Rapper from back in the days. And
okay.
it's all of our people all on one ship for 8 days networking. You know,
So
that
it's
the
all entertainment people in a
all
sense.
entertainment, all entertainment. But not
Nice.
only entertainment, but lawyers, all different types of walks of life, teachers, facilitators. They're all on the Soul Train cruise. I didn't know this until I got on the ship, and from my good friend, and shout out to Henry McMillan for getting me on the Soul Train cruise. Thank you, Henry, because it turned into an opportunity where I'm going to be doing Thunder Valley Casino uh, for a few of my future dates. Thunder Valley Casino on August 23rd in Sacramento, California. I'll be out there. And then July 12th, and Thunder Valley is going to be with Tavares. I'll be working with Tavares and
Nice.
Jeffrey Osborne.
Woo.
And July 12th, I'll be working with Mars Day and the Time for the first time. Uh,
Yeah. That's gonna be a funky show.
oh, yeah, we're doing it in Porterville, California. So I'm excited because this is the first time I've ever really worked on the West Coast. I've worked on the West Coast for a lot of the chulos, the bike riders and the
Mhm.
cars that go up and down. I've done 2 shows out there, and shout out to them because they were the first one to show me love on the West Coast.
Are
You
you on the
know,
West Coast now? Or are you still on the East Coast?
I am. I live in Las Vegas. I'm in a
Okay.
place called Mountain's Edge, and I love it here. It's quiet. I'm not a social butterfly. I don't go to big parties. I'm
Hmm.
pretty much a homebody. I like being at home, going to the supermarket, going to meetings and building my career and building the trajectory, expanding my European empire because I
Yes.
got
Yes.
a lot of
Yes.
friends in Europe and I do Europe about 6 times a year because what
Okay.
I've learned about Europe, and I tell other artists this, unfortunately, because the way the musical trajectory has changed here in America, what Charvet is doing is trying to bring back music, bring back the Mary Jane Girls, bring back DTrain, bring back, all of that. There's a guy in LA called David Ariola. I
Hmm.
met him on the Soul Train cruise. Opportunities. You see, when he closes one door, he opens up another. So I met David, and David is the one who's facilitating these shows in Sacramento and at Thunder Valley. And he's
Okay.
got a whole bunch more. I got people in New York booking me. So this is the first year I'd say I've been working in America almost as much as I've been working in Europe, which is
Okay.
exciting.
Yeah,
So
I'll say. Well,
yeah,
this
so
has
when I
been.
come out to LA, man, if you can slide on down to Sacramento, I get you in and take care of you, boss.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Well, this
Yeah.
has been an honor, man. I've interviewed a lot of your, not a lot, but a few of your counterparts, your contemporaries. Like I did Glenn Jones. I did
So
Melissa,
he was on the ship. Yeah, Glenn was on the phone.
Melba Moore. I did Valerie Simpson. Well, you've been to the Sugar Bar, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
because I've seen
performed
you
at the
perform.
Sugar
I
Bar
believe I've
three
seen you
times.
perform there.
Yeah, I performed there when Nick was alive.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I know it's been a minute, but I know I've seen you because they sometimes they even play your old videos when you perform. During
Oh,
break. Mhm.
cool. Yeah, I love Valerie. I used to work with Valerie, and we did sessions together in New York with Nile Rodgers when we were doing
Yeah.
Coca-Cola commercials. You know, we'd be in there, meet Fonzie Thornton and Valerie Simpson. I forgot the young lady who used to be Danny Glover's wife in Lethal Weapon.
I
Uh,
forgot. No, not Lynn Whitfield.
yeah, she was in there too. And it was wonderful. I mean, what I learned, I was always in school. If it was in the studio with Nile Rodgers or, you know, Michael Jackson or Luther Vandross or Bette Midler, I was in school. If it was listening, you know, when Luther came out with Superstar,
Mm.
the song recorded by Carpenters, Hubert and I were doing a tour in Amsterdam, Holland. We were in this club and that song came on. Both of us sat down and started crying at the same time. Hubert sat over there with his drink. That was back in the day when I used to drink. And I sat on myself with my Jack and Coke, and I was like,
I don't
and
feel bad now because when I first heard it, I was in my feelings too, and I was young.
oh yeah, you get in your feelings when you first hear that song because it was Nat Adderley Jr. is
Yeah,
ridiculous. Shout out to Nat. I love you,
definitely.
brother. He's one of the brothers that told me, he said, D, if you ever go on the road and you put a band together, I better be the first call. I better be the first call as the musical director. So Nat, when I get a serious tour together, I'm gonna call you, brother. I promise. Yeah.
Have you ever been in the company of Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis? You seem like
Oh
you
yeah.
would be.
The Songwriters Hall of Fame, where I sang behind Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. And
Okay,
they
okay.
told me, they explained to me, which was kind of undercover, Jimmy Jam did. The reason why I'd never worked in California was because of a powerful promoter. See, back in the 80s, we was supposed to do a tour with the time when they had 777 9311.
Okay.
And there was a powerful promoter. I won't mention his name on here, but he got me blacklisted because they couldn't work out the numbers with Norby Walters, who was a big promoter in New York. And I was rehearsing with my band in the studio in New York. My manager walked in and said, Hey, D, the whole West Coast tour has been canceled. I was like, what? And that whole opportunity to work with Mars Day and the Time went out the window. My band quit. I had Fred McFarlane, James
Oh
Batten,
man, I remember Fred. Okay.
you know, all of them were my dudes, and I had a bad band. My band, we were looking forward to getting with the time because we wanted to smoke them dudes on stage. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's the way it was in the day. It was like
Yeah.
hip hop was about competition, R&B was about competition. So we wanted to smoke Mars and them. There, we like, oh yeah, we got it. You know, because Mars Day and the Time on 777 9311, everybody wanted to see if Jelly Bean Johnson really played that on the hi hat or if it was a drum machine. Every
Okay.
drummer in New York came down to the Village Underground to watch them play.
The
And they were
Village
standing
Underground. Wow. Okay. Okay.
watching because he was doing triplicates on that hi-hat. And I was like, oh, he did it for real. You had Buddy Williams in the room.
Mm.
I mean, Buddy Williams been on Saturday Night Live forever. You had everybody in there. And they really enjoyed. Omar Hakeem was in the room. We were all standing together in a circle, and they were just like, "All right, let's see if he's going to do it." Howard King was in the room,
Mm.
you know. So everybody was checking it, man, and we were really excited to work with him. So I'm excited to work with Mars Day and them. Never worked
Yeah,
with
that's
them.
gonna be dope. That's gonna be a hot, great time.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a hot show. I met Mars for the first time when I was up at Sirius Radio. They were doing an interview with BJ Stone. And I just walked in the room and just said, hey, fellas, man, I love you, love your music. But I worked with, yeah, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. We did the Songwriters Hall of Fame together. And
Okay.
they were going to the Hall of Fame with Berry Gordy. I was working with his daughter, singing backgrounds, It was wonderful. Like I said, I'm always in school, you
Yeah,
know.
I mean, you've had an incredible journey, and I thank you so much for being on my show. And
Oh, yeah.
this has been a school lesson for myself. So I feel like I'm
The one
inspired. I'm just thankful that you
You
know
know what
blessed
I'm
me out your
thankful?
schedule.
I am grateful for you too, my brother. I just want to say, at the height of my performances, I was contracted by the Archdiocese of New York, and I'm not Catholic. Pope Francis came to America. Everybody was looking to get that gig. Aretha got it in Washington. Different people got it in New York, and then I got the call. DTrain, we need you to do On Eagle's Wings for Pope Francis. And the entire archdiocese from Italy is coming to Madison Square Garden. Will you do it? From that gig, many gigs came afterwards. I sang On Eagle's Wings at Madison Square Garden for Pope Francis. And then Prince calls my house
Mm.
and says, DTrain, and this is a quick story before we get out of here. Prince calls my house, but he wouldn't get on the phone. He had his keyboard player, Morris, get on the phone, and Morris was like, hey, D, Prince wants your blessing. I said, Prince wants my blessing. What do you want my blessing for? He said, we're getting ready to do George Lopez tomorrow night, and we're getting ready to do your song. You're the one for me on it. So he wants your blessing. I said, well, okay. Tell him he got my blessing. Tell him to call Hubert also. Strange story. He got on George Lopez and killed it. You can see it on YouTube. He dies. 2 years later, I get another phone call. D, the Boston Pop Symphony Orchestra wants you to perform with them on tour for 6 months. Will you do it? Sure, I'll do it, but I don't sing opera and I don't know multi languages. What do they want me for? I'm an R&B singer. Oh, they want you to sing. And I called up the conductor. I was like, dude, I'm not in your world. I'm not even in your league with the orchestra. What
Mm-hmm.
would you want me to sing? He said, oh, that's easy, DTrain. Purple Rain.
Mm.
That's when I knew up in heaven, Prince got me the gig. And I'm going to leave you with that.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Before you
Yeah.
leave, before I'm gonna close this out, but before you leave, I wanna ask you a question, but off
Sure.
the thing. But everybody, I know you've gained so much knowledge from this legend, this king here. So until next time, thank y'all for tuning in, and be blessed.